back to another in our series of Northern Road Link live streaming sessions. My name is Don Parkinson, and I'll be your host for this streaming session and one more coming up in 2 weeks that will focus on the feedback we have received on the Environmental Assessment Terms of Reference, or TOR. As you may know, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, also known as MECP, has extended the comment period for an additional 90 days until December 14th, 2022 for 22 Indigenous communities that may be affected and or interested in the NRL project. Today, we will be having a discussion on EA technical related comments that we've received so far. We'll continue with these live stream sessions until December 12th, 2022. That's 2 weeks from today. And we hope that you find these sessions to present and explain the input received on the terms of reference helpful. Um, it's all part of our overall intention um, to by discussing these comments and sharing them with you to be as transparent as possible about the input that we've received on the environmental assessment terms of reference. And when we move into the new year, we'll be announcing another set of live streams that will parallel our project as it moves along through the process. So we hope you find these useful. So why don't we get started now? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the different sort of themes of terrestrial advisory group. Um, Another comment related to that was during construction, there will be a high density compared with baseline conditions at least, of heavy equipment, basically talking about during the construction phase, the exhaust from heavy equipment, the dust that's produced both during construction and during operations, and talking about monitoring that should be required um, both during and after construction as well too. And just to talk a little bit about that, I'll get into it a little bit more later on, but typically through an environmental assessment process, you would identify certain aspects that might require future monitoring during construction and quite often after construction as well. So through operations, sometimes for a time period, maybe 5 years, 10 years, sometimes forever actually. So these are a couple of areas that are really interesting. There's some good points here because there is dust generated, particularly during dry seasons, from the use of the road, and it does have a localized impact, but that's certainly something that could be monitored for sure. I just want to remind everyone that they can contact us. This is a call-in show, and they can contact us at 1-844-424-0500. That's 1-844-424-0500. That's a toll-free number. Feel free to call us with a comment or question. So let's now move on to another topic, which I just touched on a little bit before, and that's commitments and monitoring. And this was a popular theme, a very common theme to many of the communities under related to potential impacts to Indigenous rights and interests are also developed, included in the conceptual monitoring plan during and post construction. Um, this is a big consideration. Projects of this nature, excuse me, linear projects of this nature, um, quite often have monitoring requirements associated with them. And, what happens is as the EA moves along, um, we receive feedback both from our technical experts that work internally, from regulators such as Impact Assessment Agency of Canada and MECP, and from Indigenous communities and the general public, suggesting things that should be monitored during construction, post construction as well. So this is something that as the EA progresses, the monitoring, the potential for monitoring and the nature of the monitoring post planning process really starts to take shape. Another comment here, the TOR does not specify that the EAR, that's Environmental Assessment Report, which is the Environmental Assessment Document, and EIS, Environmental Impact Statement, which is the federal Environmental Assessment Document or Environmental Impact Document, will describe mechanisms to support the active involvement of affected Indigenous nations in the development and implementation of monitoring plans. So there's another comment there. Another comment was a more specific one, and it was, will biological monitoring include fish tissue, feathers, and hair to detect any changes in contaminant concentrations? If not, why not? So again, these are the kinds of thoughts that come out during the process, and they they're paid very close attention to. And to remind everyone that the two proponents of this particular project are Martin Falls First Nation and Webequie First Nation, both First Nations. And both of these communities feel strongly about protecting their homeland and acting as stewards or caretakers of their homeland. So the community itself, and we meet with the community on a regular basis, the two communities, they are, very, very, very strongly behind making sure that this project leaves no significant impact on their homeland. This is where they live. This is where they've lived for a long, long time. And so they do their best and will do their best going forward to protect those lands and care for them. Let's now move to another topic. And this one is noise. And the comment that we got was participation by First Nations other than the proponents in the selection of a representative noise sensitive receptor for Indigenous harvesters slash land users that is representative of the conditions necessary for quiet enjoyment of the land. So making sure that the noise receptors, okay, sensitive receptors. So when a noise study is done, there are receptors that are put in place in different areas to capture different scenarios, different situations. Excuse me. One might be in the actual settlement part of the community, one might be just outside of the community, and one might be perhaps where the road is planned to be much further away. So capturing those sort of uh, completely undisturbed forest-like conditions. So that was one comment we received on noise. And just to remind everyone, they can call in at 1-844-424-0500. That's 1-844-424-0500. You can text us as well too with your comments or questions. Now, the another theme that we got was that there were no details about specific mitigation measures. So here's the actual comment we received. The comment was, the terms of reference contains information about design mitigations and standard mitigations, such as best management practices, general plans, and practices, but provides no details about specific mitigation measures designed to address specific effects. Further detail is required regarding how the proponent will select and describe specific mitigation measures. Now, if I can respond to that, those are the kinds of things, those specific mitigation measures come out over time during the EA process, because as the process conducts itself, the amount of detail being collected, the amount of information through the baseline studies being collected starts to increase. So our experts learn more about the environment where this project is planned to be. And when they do that, they get a better idea, a more refined idea of what specific mitigation measures to limit impacts should go where. So that comes with time, with the process. And then towards the end of the process, what's typically put together is what's called an environmental management plan, which is a very specific management plan, which contains not only best collected and during the EA process. So there's a lot of information that's collected, and a document is generated, and a lot of detail is generated in terms of an environmental management plan at the end. Let's now talk a bit about the another um, theme that came up, and that is sensitive receptor locations. The terms of reference. So the comment is the term does not identify how sensitive receptor locations for the visual environment assessment will be identified, or if indigenous nations will be involved in the selection of such locations. So sensitive receptor locations, excuse me, as I just mentioned, I just talking about noise as an example. You could use another example. Looking at impacts on the visual environment, you could identify sensitive receptor locations as well too. And these are typically, again, like noise, they're based on information collected typically and preferably from community members. In the case of visual environment, it would be, are there important lookout places, areas where views are important that you want preserved, so asking community members for these special places where people may go for solitude, for quiet time, and they want to have a nice view. They don't want that view to be impacted. These are the kinds of areas that we would call sensitive receptor locations that we would include in our, for example, visual impact analysis. We also received comments on the quantitative measurement of cumulative effects, which is a big topic, and it's a challenging one because it's hard to predict cumulative effects in a quantitative way, but to the degree that it's possible, that certainly has to be looked at. We received comments on vegetation control methods, which is not surprising, given the fact that this is a corridor that will have to be managed in terms of vegetation control. So vegetation is cleared from the roadway. A look at methods of controlling vegetation, whether it's done manually, quite often now, in the past, herbicides were used, chemical sprays were used to kill vegetation, but that has become less common, and more mechanical methods have been used as a replacement because they don't leave a huge negative environmental impact as well. So that was a big topic that came up. Impacts on fish and fish habitat. Uh, this was a big one, as can be expected, and this would include impacts to fish and fish habitat, including sturgeon, due to the impacts of road construction and bridge crossings on water flow and quality, in particular in the peatlands. And this is something that we are very much aware of. These are very sensitive areas, and during construction, that has to be done very, very carefully. It has to be timed properly to not conflict with important times of year, such as spawning seasons as well. So, these are all considerations that we make, even construction methods in the peatlands as well too, to limit um, the amount of excavation, um, limit the amount of the number of piers in water as well, which can have a negative impact, at least in the short term, on certain water courses. So that is a big area of comments as well too. And then we move to wildlife and wildlife habitat. Um, some of the comments were, it is unclear from this description whether indirect effects of the project on habitat availability will be considered, such as edge effects and effects resulting from changes in water quantity and quality. So, just to explain what edge effects are, um, edge effects are the end result of sort of an, a, an abrupt transition between two natural habitats. So you can imagine you've got a forested area or a natural area, and then you're cutting a strip through that. That's a very abrupt change from from an area with all the vegetation cut to a natural area. So um, what you're talking about there, that abrupt change is an edge effect. So what
And
they're
Don,
talking about is to keep.
and Don, we
Yes,
actually have
yes.
our live caller here, Roy.
Oh, we
Are
have
you
a
there,
live
Roy?
caller.
Roy, can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay, we got Roy. He's going to join us
I'm still on the
for a
phone.
moment.
I'll get back to you in a couple of minutes.
Hi, Roy. How are
Email.
you?
Hey, Don, did you email yesterday?
I did, Roy. Yes, I
Okay.
think the team is has left, but I'm trying to find out.
Okay, thank you. Talk to you later.
Good, no problem.
Get the sugar and then Northern Road got those on. You can shoot in.
We still have Roy there. There he is. Hey, Roy.
Hello there, guys.
How are you, sir?
What's happening? When the
Oh,
road is going to be built?
oh,
I
it's
have to
going to be
get
a
my
few more
truck.
years,
I have
Roy.
to get my truck down the road and bring it up here.
Yeah, there's a lot to do between now and then.
Yeah, winter
How are
road is
things?
so rough.
Yeah. Oh, really, eh?
Very rough in this part of the area.
Now, just about the winter road, Roy. How long has it been open for? Usually now in the winter, how long is it open for? 4 weeks to 6 weeks, maybe, or is it open longer than that sometimes?
2 months, mostly. Two
Okay.
months, it depends on the weather. I think we're going to
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a good ice this year.
Okay.
We all
But
have
it's in rough
low ice
shape, eh?
now. Yeah, but
It's
there's no
there's are
snow yet.
there Yeah. Now what about the bridges, Roy? Are the bridges in good shape?
No, we need to improve the bridges. We need to
Yeah.
have a solid bridges because we have to bring in the our equipment, heavy equipment, through the winter road before all
Oh,
the other
yeah,
roads are
sure.
open.
Yes. Yeah. So are they gonna fix up the bridges before the winter?
Yes.
Oh, good, good. Do you have many houses? Do you have you have do you have houses planned for the to be built?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. How many more houses?
Not sure.
Okay. But it sounds like there's a lot of material to come through over the winter, eh?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So our
Cool.
northern road, the wildlife habitat areas, are they
Yep.
done most of it in that route, the study area?
No, it's pretty. They just started it, I believe, last year. So there's a lot more
Yes.
field work to go. And I'll keep you
Yes.
up to date on what's happening with that, Roy, because there's gonna be more work. I don't know what's happening this winter. I think it's wolverine and caribou this
Yes.
winter, but I'll keep you up to date because we'll probably need your help.
Yeah. I'd like to have a Wolverine jacket for my birthday, my next birthday. Maybe I'll come along with the team.
Yeah, you can. Absolutely, you can. How's the hunting been so far this fall, Roy?
It was good.
Good. Yeah. Did you get
It was
lots of
really
moose?
good. I didn't even get one. My partner measured about the 30 feet range.
Oh,
My
geez.
buddy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was so close. Yeah. It was so close. We had to let it go. The moose ran away from us.
What about
It was
trapping, Roy? Have you had your trap set up?
yes.
What you been getting?
I need a chopper to go in there to check my chops, Skitty.
Oh, you do. I'll look into that, Roy.
Gonna pay
Now,
7 minutes ride.
what have you been getting in your traps this year? Anything different than normal?
I just set him up a few days ago.
Oh, okay. You've got
Just
some
for
close to
beaver for
town too,
now.
don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do you ever get the Wolverine stealing the beavers from your traps?
No.
No way.
That's what I have to watch. Yeah. I always take my guns with me, my rifle and
Yeah.
shotgun, in case if we disturb my traps and I have to go after him. Put
When are
him
you
on
coming to Thunder
Receptor.
Bay next, Roy?
Anytime.
Anytime. Okay. Yeah, because there's an there's an off reserve meeting on Wednesday in Thunder Bay, eh?
Yes. I saw that one. I would like to come.
Well, let's see if I don't know if who's flying out. Is anybody? Do you know if anybody's flying out? Be good to have you there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I haven't go see chief on council. I guess sometime
Yeah.
this week.
Ask them and see if anybody's flying out, because it'd be good to have you
Yeah,
there. We had a Roy. We had a comedian a few weeks ago on our radio
yeah, I
show.
saw that one. Yeah, I
Did
know
you
him.
see that one? Did you like him?
Yeah, yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, I was listening
He's
to
a
him
funny
on
guy.
politics. Yeah, he is a very funny guy.
He's going to be there on Wednesday night.
It's good.
He's going to do a show Wednesday night, so that'll
Yeah,
be fun. You'll enjoy that.
yeah.
What else is new on your end, Roy? Anything? What about big plans for the winter? You got caribou hunting planned?
Yes.
Yeah,
I need
good.
a couple of them. I need just two of them. Only
Oh, you do, yeah.
my daughter, my wife, and I eat caribou. Three of us, four of us.
Okay. Not everybody likes caribou, I
All
guess, eh? To eat?
not everybody. It's just like fish. Some people don't eat whitefish, pickerel, and pike.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
people don't eat
That's true, eh?
speckled trout. It's certain.
Yeah,
They
that's
have
right.
allergies.
So you've been Yeah, oh, the allergies. Yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
eh? So
That's
how's
the guys.
retired life?
That's the people. That's the people they're going to support for northern group. The ones that don't eat caribou.
That's right.
Just
You're
kidding.
right, Roy. Roy, you gotta come. You gotta come on Wednesday. See if you can get a flight.
Sure. Okay.
Come
Can
and
I
then
bring
if
my
you can come
helper?
Wednesday. Yes, you can bring your help. Yes, you can.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Roy, what I'll do is let me check with the team and see if they're still around. I think they left on Saturday, but I'll double check and I'll get back to you.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Talk to you.
Thanks for calling, Roy. Good to see you.
Bye. Bye.
See you, Roy. So we'll talk a little bit more before we finish things off about plants and vegetation communities and some of the comments we got. One of the comments we got was the TOR does not specify that the EAR or EIS will provide information about traditional use plants. the location and abundance of rare plant species, and the ecological communities of conservation concern. So, in fact, the TOR or the EA document will contain um, any information we're able to obtain about location of traditional use plants and rare plants as well too. All that information is relevant. We need to know that. We want to know that as part of doing our work. We also received some comments on uh, unavoidable adverse project impacts. So the comment was, will unavoidable adverse impacts of the project be specifically identified in the EAIA sections with a summary of these impacts in the EAIA? So these were what you call I guess, residual impacts, the impacts left over after all mitigation. Um, that's what is being talked about here. Another comment was, will a summary of impacts be provided indicating which impacts could be avoided or minimized versus those for which compensatory mitigation would be required? If not, why not? Um, so those were some interesting comments. We got comments on factors used to measure habitat availability, that is habitat quantity and quality. We got other comments, really good comments actually on the assessment of the likelihood of increased violence against Indigenous women and girls. We got comments on aggregate quarries. The comment was, how many aggregate quarries are planned? What plans are in place for remediation of the aggregate quarries after closure? And have these costs been incorporated into cost benefit projections? Um, Another interesting set of comments on the consideration of negative socioeconomic effects of the project. Uh, the comments were, there are a number of foreseeable negative impacts on socioeconomic conditions, including traditional economies, cultural based economies, and socio impacts identified in the MMIWG, that's missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. National Inquiry. The TOR should be revised to include these negative impacts as measurable requirements. So we got comments on that, which was really interesting. Health assessment comments. This was a really interesting comment. The health assessment should model a self-sufficient Indigenous receptor in relation to country food harvest to address potential future safety concerns of Indigenous harvesters. Um, and then another interesting comment under health assessment was, for any food tissue sampling program, organ meat of species sampled must also be considered, as organ meat is an important dietary staple. Then we move to fish, wildlife, and vegetation existing species list, description of existing conditions, and that comment was, list of potential fish, wildlife, and vegetation species present in the regional study area must also be confirmed with non-proponent First Nations to ensure all known species are included. Interesting comment. And then we had some comments on alternatives, that is, alternative methods, talking about the alternatives. And part of the comment was, given that the scope and proposed use of this project differs drastically from any other project that has been historically proposed in the region, engagement for those projects should not be considered adequate or sufficient to inform the alternative route analysis for this project that the proponent claims has taken place to date. Identifying alternative routes is a critical step in the EA process, as it scopes and limits all further assessment and engagement from that point onward. And two more themes that we got before we go. One of them was input on alternatives, water crossings, alignment, and aggregate sources. A couple of the comments were input on water body crossing structure types, span lengths, road alignment, and aggregate extraction areas are key aspects from First Nations other than the proponents. Disaggregated approach to reporting the results of input from Indigenous nations was another comment related to that. And then we received comments on regional hazardous materials spill and emergency response. So a lot of different themes, so many to cover. I do want to point out that we did receive a Facebook question. And the Facebook question is, will the corridor follow the esker that KWG staked? And I can't confirm that for sure. We have alternative corridors right now, and probably a portion of that corridor it makes up one of the alternatives. But we will have to confirm. I'll have to confirm that for you. I'm not entirely sure about that. I wouldn't want to answer it without knowing exactly if that's the case. But I'm sure at least a segment of that corridor which runs along the esker, makes up at least one of the alternatives or part of one of the alternatives. So anyway, thank you for your question via Facebook, and I will endeavor to confirm that one way or the other and provide that. So just wanted to remind everyone. First of all, thank everyone for joining us today. We had a special guest, Roy Spence from Webquay First Nation, joining us, which was a nice surprise. Thanks again for joining us in these streaming sessions. We hope you join us again in a couple of weeks when we're going to continue our discussion on what we've heard about the Northern Road Link Environmental Assessment Terms of Reference, with next week's show theme being Aboriginal and treaty rights and interest related comments. And just a reminder to Indigenous communities and the general public that they can engage with the project team in a number of different ways, whatever best suits them, including focus group sessions, community sessions, drop in sessions, virtual focus groups, virtual community presentations, 1 hour teleconferences, local radio call-in shows where we would visit your community and host a local radio show on the project, and online surveys. So there's a lot of different ways that community members and the general public can uh, can work with us to provide input to us on the project, which we would welcome to help make our EA as comprehensive as possible. So once again, thanks for joining us, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. Miigwech.